Hello, everybody. This is James Diboe on Discovering Season 3. And we've got a special guest in today, Mr. Dave Clay. And this is the last day of the Black History Month, and well, I call it Original People's History Month. And we're going to first introduce Dave Clay. How are you doing, Mr. Dave Clay?
I'm fine, James, and thank you for the invitation. And I'm glad to be the last on Black History Month.
Yeah, well, you know, it's been great. You know, I've read like browsed through your book and that, and there's so much stuff that I've got to ask you also. You know, usually what we usually do here, Dave, is start with the timeline.
Yes.
So I understand that you're going back to, you're born 1950.
Correct.
Yeah. So during your times, what was Black history to you, like in the beginning and to where you've seen it slowly going to?
Well, obviously you've mentioned my age.
Yeah.
When I was born.
I should have left you.
So you can imagine I was in school in the 1960s, and there was no Black history whatsoever, unless you want to call 10 Little Niggers by Agatha Christie, or Uncle Tom's Cabin. There was a complete lack of anything to make you feel proud, to be a black male or a black female. We were depicted, Africans were depicted as boiling people in pots and running around with grass skirts and etc. So, in answer to the question, what was Black history then? There was none, as far as from my perspective. I didn't see any. I don't even know if it's the same today. There was nothing in the curriculum which put any light onto the old history of Africa and etc. And it was basically we were basically depicted as savages in textbooks in the school.
Now, I know your father, you tell me, from Sierra Leone.
Yeah, Freetown.
So sometimes having an African father can help with knowing your history to a degree. Not always.
Yeah. Certainly.
Was there anything that was passed down, whether it was orally from your roots from Sierra Leone?
No, well, I have to be quite honest about that. I did not know my dad.
Okay, yeah, that's right, yeah.
And I had two sisters, Aileen and Adu, who were a bit older than me. And my dad, my mother and father were married, but split up. And he wanted to take the three of us, my two sisters and me, back to Africa. And apparently, I obviously knew nothing about it. I was only a child.
Yeah.
So it was taken to court because my mother contested, wanted me to stay in England, and consequently, I did. So in relation to my knowledge of Africa, all my knowledge came from uncles, you know, whether it was eating Gary or whether I was eating, you know, African foods, etc. It all came from within the community, so to speak. And at that particular time, I don't know whether there's been that much change, but everybody seemed to be your uncle or your auntie, if you know what I mean. And there was a pretty close community.
That seemed like a key word when you use community then, especially back then, because if the knowledge is not coming from in your household, then at least people as a community can teach each other. Maybe one person's parent didn't teach them this, and they can, you know, it's all about passing on, sharing our knowledge.
Of course.
We used to see, seems like we see more of that back in the day, would you say, as a community, a stronger community?
I would say so, because not only in relation to racist literature, there was also danger.
Racism.
Yeah, there was danger. We were surrounded by danger. Park Road, Earl Road, Scotland Road, where we are. They were all places which were dangerous to us. And, you know, you'd go in a group. I wouldn't go by myself to certain places at that particular time.
Got to roll deep. Yeah.
And you were talking about, let's say, the 1960s, for example. I don't know whether you've heard the term, the derogatory term, obviously, packy bashing.
I've heard, yeah.
You know, there wasn't just, you know, gypsies, the Irish, you know, many suffered more during those periods.
Okay, yeah. So now your activism days now, we're going quite a bit back now. Before, obviously, this is the book.
Yes.
This is the book that's out now, isn't it?
Yes.
And I live 1919 to 2019. A Liverpool Black History, 100 years. And here's the book. And then just going through some of these chapters now.
Yes.
We got starting here. There's many. I'm looking at number. You can go up to 100 and something. Yeah. But one of the ones I want to ask you about is an issue of identification. That's on number 5.
Yes.
You explain a bit about an issue of identification.
Well, there's always been an issue of identification.
So I can see it to this day. But I'm wondering, from the era you're from, was it much more complex than how it is today, or was it more simpler?
I'd say it was a bit more complex.
Okay.
For example, when I was a teenager, we were known. There was a joke. For example, what's the cleanest street in Liverpool? Upper Parliament Street, because there's a shine on every corner, right? So we were known as shines.
Okay.
In some quarters, not saying all quarters. As I do say in the introduction of the book, that I have no problem with identity. I'm black as black can be.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm not half caste.
I don't deal with a half caste term.
I'm not quarter caste.
Yeah.
But these were the type of terms then, because we've been Negro, coloured, half caste, quarter caste. And when I worked for the Community Relations Council, where I had to go and speak with either youth clubs or children, I would use the analogy that if I was unfortunate enough to bump into the National Front, they wouldn't give me half a beating. Would say he's only half caste, so you give him half a beating. No, he's only quarter caste, so you give him 2 beating. I'm black, and I'm a nigger, so to speak. I'm a derogatory term which they use. So over time, there was a little bit of confusion, if you're with me, because white people would say to you, "Oh, you're all right. You're one of us,"
Yeah. That was how it was.
We wasn't African, so to speak, but we were African. We had African blood in us, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So confusion, much more in those days than there is today, if you know what I mean. Like today, they've even now calling us. Yesterday I was a Negro. Today I'm an ethnic minority, or a BAM, or whatever it may be. So that's to your question. Yeah, there was more confusion about identity back in the day. Today, obviously, there'll still be confusion, but definitely not to the same extent as yesterday.
Yeah, because it seems like it's still happening to this day, like the confusion.
Yeah,
and maybe it's how, because your first teacher is your parents, isn't it? That's the first, and then outside of that, your community and other members of your family, people who grow up in that.
Yes.
But I just got told from young, we're black.
Of course.
We identify as, even though I've got Trinidad from my mum's side, and obviously there's Nigerian from my father, but I've always gravitated to the Nigerian, because the Trinidadians are from Africa originally, and I can't like pinpoint the exact place that they're from. So I've always been passionate about my Nigerian roots,
Right, of course.
And it's one of those things, as a traveller, I'm mixing with melanated peoples all over the world. I've always had that strong connection. Wherever we go, I see the same struggles.
Yes.
I see a civilization which always predates the next invaders that come in. Because one thing about there's something called like Black Genesis.
Yes.
And it's something that is a global thing. It's not even just in America, just in the UK. It's global.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So this is what I've seen myself. People skin bleaching. You know what? You could go on forever of all the different things that bring the confidence down.
Yes.
So and I'm happy you say yourself. You just call it. We just say black. We don't deal with.
Yes.
Now here's another thing. Because we take on a lot of titles that the European gives us, and one of the words could be black.
Yes.
And this is like, because I was speaking to a friend of mine, Nigerian roots, and he said when his father came to this country, he didn't know he was black till he came here. And that kind of blew my mind when I heard that, because it really made me analyze things properly. You know, so when we use like the word black, some people want to put it in a political way.
Yes.
Some people might see it as a consciousness.
Yes.
You know, a culture. And then some people just might not even, they just see it as like, it could be someone dark-skinned or phenotype, that type. But really, I mean, no one is actually black-skinned. I mean, even going to Africa, you see someone really dark.
Yes.
But the word black is something that's given to us by the European. Yeah. But in this country, if you look at what black represents in his dictionaries, it ain't nothing good towards us.
No.
And I've been having these long, deep conversations with people.
Yeah. Malcolm X did say, you know, there's 100 ways that the dictionary can demean you, can demean black. Yeah. If you know what I mean, from black male to whatever it made black ice.
Big list of them go on, isn't it? Blacklisted.
And on. You know, obviously it was looked as a derogatory term, if anything. And that maybe, that's, you just brought up a point, which it just reminded me, is that my mother was white, and I've briefly told you some of the circumstances, but she brought us up by herself.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, like many around me.
Definitely.
At the time, and I always seen she was a strong woman. She'd have to shield you from racism. Yeah. You know, she wouldn't come in and say, I was called a nigger lover last night, so to speak. If you know what I mean, she'd just deal.
We had to be really stronger even back then, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I give all credit to that. Just on the book very quickly, i.e. the title. If you've noted that, I've called it A Liverpool Black History. Yep. Not Liverpool Black History.
Okay, what was the reason for that?
Well, the reason is because it's my perspective.
Okay.
Which I've got underneath, so I'm not professing that I know all black history in Liverpool. I'm just giving my perspective. So it's a Liverpool Black History, and it's a Liverpool Black perspective.
Yeah.
And the other point I was going to make was that which you touched on without saying it, if you look at the census forms.
Well, census, yeah. We're talking about that the other day.
Their categories which they put, or the equal opportunity forms, if you apply for a job and they say tick here, what you are, or in other situations where they're supposed to do it but they don't. After the Stephen Lawrence inquiry, the police, if they stop and search it, are supposed to then give you a form, i.e. they were saying that will count how many blacks are getting stopped and searched. Now, if you look at that form, which I have, and I've been given the form, and I've said there's no category there for me, so we'll put other.
Well, yeah, I'm happy you said that.
So I says, well, you know, you've been calling us other, you treat us as other. Yeah. So, you know, so he said, if you got any complaints, you take it to the chief constable, if you know what I mean. So, as when I worked in community relations, I mean, these forms, I'm a skeptic, and I would think, basically, this tells them other information. It also tells them, you know, that your name isn't really Dave Clay. You know, it's really Dave Masuka or whatever. Whatever it may be, and I can see you black. So it gives them an opportunity to also to reject as well as include, if you know what I mean. So I don't have never had any faith in those forms or the how they identify us.
Well, it's funny enough you mentioned that. I was getting interviewed by Curtis Watts on my own show the other day.
Go on.
And I was speaking about censorship because I was trying to speak about Indigenous peoples, and they might say on the census that there's only so many Indigenous peoples, or they could tell you there's non-Indigenous peoples, and you can't always go by because you don't know how accurate these are.
Right, of course.
You know what I mean? So I'm happy you broke that down. There's a part on here anyway. Now, the African presence in Liverpool. What point do you deal with the African presence in Liverpool? Where do we start with yourself?
Well, to me, obviously, I was brought up in African presence. in Liverpool, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
there was no African presence in that sense. But obviously, as I got more older and more mature, I was with a group, for example, the chairperson of LARCA, which is the Liverpool Anti-Racist Arts, basically organisation. And our role was to identify in the city African relics, whether it's African's head on the town hall, or on the sector. So African presence, I was trying to show in that particular chapter. You know, all the chapters are very short. I was just trying to show in that our Liverpool's long association with Africa and Africans, and how, as you're seeing there, how they were selling us, you know, on the steps of Custom House, you know, and like I say, it's only because the era I was born in, I could have been Charles Wotton, you know, and getting murdered, or I could have been.
Oh yeah.
It's just when I was born in that particular period of time.
Yeah.
So African presence in Liverpool, I would say you could see it visually if you open your eyes.
Yeah.
When you're walking around the city, obviously things have changed over years and years, but 9 out of 10, the African presence is in this city. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. But that's where not just the African, that's where our cultures come from, isn't it?
Yeah,
you
I
know?
say African, but I basically could say the black presence.
Yeah. But I'm happy you put African because it's direct, it's the roots, it's the source, it's humanity, it's the beginning. So I always identify with Africans. Like when we speak about black history, I always refer to it as African history.
Right, I've noted that.
You've noted that,
yeah.
Because I'm just very solid with it, and I'm not I'm not fitting into the narrative of anything.
Right, go on. Yes.
I'm interested in the beginning, the source, and where who had civilization in the beginning.
Yes.
That's all I'm interested in.
Can I just say feeling that I've always had about i.e. black history.
Yeah.
I say it in there. When we started, I couldn't really say when Liverpool started to celebrate black history, right? I would say, I guess, it would be around the 80s and 90s, right? We did it.
You started it all off.
I didn't start it all off. The people, like the organisations, our organisations, with old outings for the kids, we had control of Black History Month with no funding from any statutory body.
Independently.
Independently, it was done.
Yeah.
And so it was, to me, it was a celebration because we were doing it ourselves. And as you'll note in the book, I'm critical all the time in relation to how the city of Liverpool realised the power of black people, of black artefacts, of black history. Prior to that, we've been saying, we want black history in our schools, on our curriculum. This was the shout. So they'd say, well, you can have black history in the cellar of the Charles Wotton Centre in Upper Parliament Street, so to speak. It wasn't going into school. So basically, we want this racist literature out of our schools, right? Liverpool's racist. No, it's not. Then, as you see in the book, I might just have the date wrong on my head, but in 1984, the first slave museum came into the city.
1984.
Yeah, you could check that. But just in case I've got the date wrong. And I was invited to the very first meeting. Peter Moores, brother of John Moores of Littlewoods, etc. And nice people. Like John Moores was, he was a humanitarian kind of thing.
Okay.
And when we found out before we went to this invitation, which was at the Museum of Liverpool, and it could be 94 actually. So it was 91. When they started these negotiations, so he said he had an announcement to make, but didn't say what the announcement was. But we found out it was to have a slave gallery in Liverpool. But we also found out they had the same discussions in Bristol and in London. Right in London, it was going to be in what was called the Golden Triangle, which was like the House of Commons, the River Thames, wherever. It was a Golden Triangle. They were going to have a mock slave ship, which people could visit and see how slaves existed. And I can't remember what the project was going to be in Bristol, right? But the next one, they're in Liverpool. Lord Pitt. They got all the black dignitaries, so to speak. Sir Larry Constantine. You know what I mean? And it was like, yes, we're going to have it. But they'd been planning it for 7 years. And what had happened? Whereas you want black studies, no, you can't have black studies. Now they were listening. So you may note, and I give all praise to Stephen Small, Professor Stephen Small, for this happening. He was on this meeting that I was on, it was referred to, and he stuck with it. He stuck with the group, because all the meetings were held in London. Yeah. Right? And he stuck with the group. And you would notice what it was called was the Liverpool Slave Museum Against Human Dignity. Now, why they added human dignity? Not because they had any dignity, they added it because people like Professor Small insisted that black people or Africans should not be seen as being submissive to the position that they was in, and they were revolting, and they were doing things so do not perceive the African as being weak and things. So that's why they added, because they started to listen now. Yeah. And then when they started to listen, and maybe I'm jumping the gun because you may be going to ask these things, but in the Transatlantic Slave Gallery article, which I've gotten there near the end, you know, slave walk, slave talk, everything was now they completely, because they said, well, let's listen here. You've added the human dignity, if you know what I mean. And so I protest. Why would you have a KKK Grand Wizard uniform in a slave gallery?
Of course.
I would question it if it was in a museum. Yeah. Why would you have Black Sambo, gollywogs? Then, no expense spared. Invite Martin Luther King's family. Invite Myra, basically black icons from America. You know, bring them all in. They'd see the economic. This is what I show in there. I'm not. I don't feel any way about saying it quite clearly. It's my belief, but I do believe that because I was invited from the very first steps which they was making, because a few of us were invited to that, we could see the tyranny. I'll call it. We could see the dollars in the eyes. You know, 300,000. They even said then, at that meeting, it will attract over 300,000 people into the city a year, but it's free. You know, but you bring 300,000 people into the city, it means your hotels, your restaurants, and what to sell. And then they actually even took over the slave, if we could, for the sake of a term, the slavery curriculum. We will think in schools, you can bring your children to us, and we will do the thing. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like you say that, I mean, because even some of our own people, when we deal with history, because it's just been something I've just been pumped into from young, and then just grew from it, started researching myself, traveling, going deeper into it. Yes. But my main focus was always on history and all the great things we did in that. But now, there's many different areas of research in history, and then we got the economic side. Now, with the economic side, some people are only interested in black history or African history unless there's an economic plan involved.
Right.
Now, this is something that I've came across this many times for years and years.
Yes.
That's why I'm more just like, well, I know what I'm doing right, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Right.
I do these shows for free. You know, I pay for Renoka Rashidi to come over, so it's not a case of.
I know what you're saying, brother. See, that particular newsletter, I suppose you could call it. It's just paper put together with staples and done on a typewriter. I've done about 20 of those in the 70s when I was with the Community Relations Council, and I didn't. They were all free. Then in the early millennium, I done a Granby Toxic Review, all free. I donate history, so similar to yourself. It's not about money. Any of the organisations I've been, I've worked where I've been getting salary.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you're working it
for working later.
Yeah,
but even then, I was voluntary.
Yeah,
in groups.
That's right. Yeah,
I wasn't getting anything, you know, and I just wanted to say another thing. As I was doing the book, it took me 3 or 4 years to do this.
3 to 4 years, yeah.
By the way,
wow.
But as I was doing it, I meant to bring to show I had other covers,
yeah,
which kind of went up to 2016. That's where it started, basically. But when I was doing it, I started to have a few doubts. The doubts were basically, putting it bluntly, this is just an old man going on about what used to happen. You know,
the history and
etc. Then I remember it distinctly. I was 69 years of age. The first time I was assaulted by the Merseyside police, my memory is when I was 12.
12.
And in fact, loads of times since then. But in December of 2019, while I was still in the process of doing the book, I always remember it was I told you I'm a Liverpool fan. And a lot of the lads come round to my house from Liverpool playing. We were playing a team called Genk.
Yeah.
From Belgium. And two of us went out to my car. Don't know if you've ever been in my close, in Grinsell Close.
Yeah.
And you know, it was one way in and one way out.
Okay.
Car. So I got in the car, put the keys in. A friend next to me, we was going to shop just to get a few goodies because I'm watching the game, etc. And a police car came in to the close, so I had to turn the ignition. It's unfortunate this wasn't got on camera, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So he pulled up next to me and asked normal questions. Is this your car? Just I was fully insured, fully MOT. There was nothing wrong with my car whatsoever. I'd been driving for 30 years, I have a license,
Totally
etc. So everything was legitimate. So I normally I'm very, you know, despite my physique, you know, I'm very aggressive a bit towards the police because that's just the way I've been brought up.
Of course.
Based on my experiences.
Yeah.
You know, but I was polite. And said to man, and I said, look, officer, what's the problem? I said, you know, because I'm doing A, B, and C, you know. So next thing, the big officer, he wasn't talking to me, he got out of his car, come round to my side, the driver's side, the window was open. I said, take the keys, get out the car. I said, I won't. So he reached in, pulled my arm out. 10 stone, nothing. Pulled my arm and nearly breaking it. But he'd have to break my arm before I'd even feel pain. And
was you 12, do you say?
No, this was in when I was 69.
Oh, but for the
it was 12. I was 12. I'm just saying, one of the doubts about doing the book were completely going to be removed.
Yeah.
If you're with me. So I had to get out the car because he pinged my arm. So I threw it out the window. You know, it was about 16, 17 stone, was a big man. And I got out the car and he says, you just do what you're told, I'll put you in handcuffs. So I said, not politely, that I won't. You know, I'm not your slave. I don't do what you tell me.
Yeah.
So I got put in handcuffs. Right? And then he started to search me and said, I only had flip-flops on. I think I was just sitting watching telly, you know. And started to search me and said, this is a Section 42 for the Misuse of Drugs Act. All of this had developed from nothing. Yeah. I haven't done nothing wrong. And so I said, whatever. And so when he initially tried to take the handcuffs off me, I resisted. I was deep in handcuffs, man, because, you know, etc. So I complained. Now, I've never complained before, right? But because today it's an easy process, you know, just go on the net.
Easy now,
go
yeah.
online.
A lot easier now.
A lot easier now. Yeah. So I might as well complain. So I remember quite distinctly the, suppose you could call him, the investigating officer. The investigating officer said to me, what do you expect out of this? So I said, nothing. I said, but the minimum expectation is that this officer knows that I have complained about him, if you know what I mean, because you need some training on how to deal with the public. But I also added that if this would have been America, I would have been dead. He was the type who would have shot me dead, right? He said, well, you're not in America, are you? I said, but can't you hear what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I would have been dead. So on that point, I would say that Liverpool black people have been lucky, i.e. that the police don't carry guns in Britain.
Oh, compared to the US?
Yes.
Oh, of course.
We have been lucky. And that's not to say there's not many black people who have been murdered by the police in Britain via guns.
Yeah.
Or via restraint. Via many different ways. Look at Dalian Atkinson, the footballer who was tasered and he died, etc. So
yeah,
we've been lucky. So after that, I decided, well, I'm definitely doing this. I'm definitely doing this book.
There's a question here, number 75. Liverpool Black Organisations, 1978 to 1981.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I was born 81. Can you tell us a little bit about these Liverpool Black Organisations back in that times?
Well, I wouldn't say I was the founder.
No, me, just even what was going on.
No, I wouldn't say I was the founder, but all the things we've been talking about were going on, let's say.
Well organised, though.
Yeah, so I believed that we needed to build a strong black organisation, free from any funding, independent. Yes, and this is what the LBO was to become. But there was like-minded people. So joined with like-minded people. We spent almost a year, we haven't even got a copy of it, preparing a constitution. Because how do you do a constitution for a Liverpool black organisation without having white people involved in it?
Yeah.
When our mothers and aunties and etc.
Yeah.
So that was had to be dealt with. You know, white people could be part of the Liverpool black organisation. So we got together and we started the Liverpool Black Organisation. Now, by then we were very mature people, so, you know, 40s. So what we were basically doing was trying to organise, for the sake of a term, an ethnic group.
Yeah.
if you with me.
Yeah.
So I do mention in
Did that cause any confusion in any way? Like an example, I know it was people who are like-minded, people who want to come together and fight against racism. But when you're setting up a black organisation, particularly say it was like if you got board members, it's all the board members should be black as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
I mean, is that any of them board members, or was you keeping the board members all black of an organisation? Or
no, we kept all were Liverpool black.
Yeah, because these are things that are very important.
We said that only officers would have to be Liverpool black, because that's what it's called, the Black
Yeah.
Organisation. So it's all black. But you're right, because there was an incident in St. John's Market with black youth, security fighting, etc., and this and that, and black youth getting arrested. So we decided to help the black youth.
Yeah.
Right. So what we done, because we didn't have the experience, we invited a group from Bradford, and I don't know what it was called, a Bradford 6. They'd worked on something with black, so we invited them to our meeting.
Yeah.
To talk to us about the best way forward.
Okay.
But it transpired that they went, well, we can't do this. He says, why? He said, because there's white people in the audience.
Okay.
There's white people in the audience.
Okay.
Which, without going through it all again,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
see
yeah.
the reasons why we was in that situation. We says, well, okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. But we knew we had to have tactics, right? And that's why, I don't know what you heard of him, but he's in there, a Jewish gentleman called Saul Alinsky.
Okay.
And there was tactics called the Alinsky tactics. So we, I think it was through the British Churches Foundation, went on a course to learn Alinsky tactics. And basically what Alinsky tactics was protesting and demonstrating legally, right? And I'll give you an example, which is in there. A black youth went to the Army and Navy stores in Randall Street when it was there over the road from Liverpool at the time. And the security said the coat he was wearing had been stolen from there. He said it hadn't. It was his coat. So they eventually brought him to the ground, etc., and it's transpired it was his coat.
Right.
So he went to a solicitor 15, I think he was, solicitor sent, etc. The Army and Navy stores replied and basically supported the security's actions, which you know that would be the case.
Yeah.
Be the case. So now you say, well, what can we do about this?
Right.
So we used the Alinsky tactics because we had a trainer named Hank Mahoney. He was an Alinsky trainer from Ireland, and he came, and I can't remember whether it was going to be for 4 weeks or whatever, but a few of our members went on it. And we used tactics. And the tactics were, at that particular time, you could spend so much in half pennies. Right? So by the time we'd worked with him, we knew how many tills were in the Army and Navy stores. We knew what the staff wore. They all wore red jackets. So we went there on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, peak time, and used half pennies.
Half pennies.
Yeah. So you can imagine you pay your fare, your bus fare, in 40 half pennies. You know, you're going to keep a lot of people in the queue. So we decided we'd have a half penny group. That half penny group would buy things, small like laces, etc., and taking the laces out and saying, no, you know, just causing them the maximum inconvenience. But the motto of Alinsky was that for every action, there's a reaction.
That's right.
So you can imagine 20, 30 black people, male and female, and we had all the girls wearing red, same as in the shop to bring about more confusion. You can imagine us going downtown, it's 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and all going into this shop. Well, the first reaction, you would say, the police. So we had a solicitor outside, and a vicar.
Yeah.
Bless his soul. Father Austin. I've got that book.
Yeah.
So that was for the reaction.
Okay.
i.e., this is legal. That, you know, then we'd have people fighting, you know, and sex. We just caused confusion. So in the end, the manager come and said, "Look, what do you want?" So he says, "Well, we want an apology to this to the lad, and we want it to be reimbursed accordingly, and we want you to declare yourselves as an equal opportunities employer."
Okay.
Right, and all of that happened.
Yeah.
Sorry to prolong this, but Alinsky was basically do what you can with what you have. And we knew what we had. We had an organisation of people who had experienced racism all their lives,
Or
so
they knew
to
what
speak.
to do.
So we had that. And so the LBO became with the term be the nemesis of the press, of the Liverpool Echo, the police, all ex-criminals. They're all, and we was like painted, the brush was painted on us. And who are the LA Defence Committee to say that they represent anybody? But the fact of the matter is that we did, because there was no organisation, and it was only the 1981 riots, as you see, which broke it up, because we then really become the Liverpool Defence Committee.
Yeah.
So that's just a brief history of that. So this wasn't just an organisation that you just said, an organisation. Yeah, I'm here today, you know.
Yeah.
We had tactics. You know, we made representations for government reports.
Yeah.
About Liverpool and things like it. Oh my God, loosen the shackles.
It rings a bell, like,
Which is in there, because there was so much racism in Liverpool, in every area, you know, be it employment, etc.
Yeah. So one of the main questions I ask every person who comes on this show is the importance of African history. How important is it to know our history? You know, sometimes it might not be told in the household. Well, you know, as a community, we got to be teaching each other. How important do you think, Dave, it is to know African history, our roots, of where we're from?
I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Yep.
Right. I have tended to concentrate on the black history here more than I have about African black history. Obviously, people like Mandela who gave. I mean, you mentioned the term before. When did you become? Well, not just with me. I've heard you say to a few people when you've interviewed. When would you say it was the pivotal point when you became an activist?
Okay.
You know, and like, if you look up the word activist, you know, it's just, let's say, somebody who's got a passion with a certain thing, etc. But
I mean, do you feel like what I mean, where I'm coming from with it is like, do you feel it's important to know our history? I mean, like,
yes, and I know what you say.
I understand what you might have concentrated on.
I would say.
I understand you might have concentrated on this area.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I'd say initially yes to your question.
Yeah.
And why I said I was not a hypocrite, because I haven't.
Oh, that's not a problem, though. That's not a problem.
If you're with me. But I did join a group.
Yeah.
A group once, which was, it was called the Banana Group. It's all black lads.
Yeah.
And basically all it was is that you give X money a week to build up a kitty, and I'd go to your house, we'd all have food in yours, and we'd rotate that group. And I got kicked out the group.
Yeah.
Right, and I got kicked out the group because I wasn't what your question.
Yeah.
Was because they would say things like, "Look, Mum, we've got to get this these clothes and this food or whatever to Africa," and I would say, "Well, look, there's poverty here too, you know, and we should have." Oh, looked at me, you know.
Yeah.
So that was
I understand where you're coming from.
So,
Basically,
I agree with
start
you.
from home.
They should be.
So I understand totally where you're coming from, because
Yeah.
even Dr. John Hendrik Clark said that you've got to try to build from the community where you're living in, and then you can take it further.
Right.
But now, as a Pan-Africanist, me,
Right.
you know, we're born here in Liverpool, but
Yes.
Chase, one of my peoples, he's born in America.
Right.
Or I've got people who might be in Nigeria, we got people in London, whatever. And that's why I see something to bring us all together.
Yes.
I'm not fully just concentrating Liverpool, because,
Right.
I mean,
no, I understand.
I mean,
what you're saying.
on the presence I've gone, I'm on the global African presence. I mean,
Yeah, man.
respect to anyone dealing with what area of
Yes.
research you want to deal with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, that's why I say African history, particular.
No. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
to be specific of the roots of our cultures.
Instead of black history, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything you want to add on, Dave? Anyway, because we're coming near to the end of the show.
Okay.
But it's been an excellent talk anyway.
I can't really think too much other than usually in these situations, usually ask, do you think there's been any change?
Do you think? Okay.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And like, and I think I mentioned
From
just before that, for example, the technology,
the technology, yeah.
the cameras,
Yeah.
right, that they can't hide their racism and murderous ways anymore. I personally torture myself.
Yeah.
Because of my age and because I'm more in the house than out the house.
Okay.
I think about the last 5 years or so to speak, I've watched everything that's on YouTube.
Yeah, yourself.
And
Big YouTube man, me.
So
yeah.
I'm seeing this craziness and, you know, and the humiliation and degradation that they put on us, on black people. So it makes me a little bit more, not racist, cause definitely not racist that I hate white people, because I don't, if you know what I mean. And that's because of me upbringing. I have respect for all those who have respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, be the black. You know, obviously I don't like the National Front, or I don't like right-wing supremacists, whatever. So also in the changes, one of the things which to make, because I was always in the past.
Can I just say one thing and continue?
Course,
you just
yeah,
said, because I hear this a lot about left wing, right wing, left wing. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're just one and the same. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, that's one thing where sometimes I'm sitting there and I listen to people speaking about the left, the right, the left, the right, and I'm just like, ain't none of them gonna do anything for this. You know, it's. Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror.
America tells you that story too, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I just can't play into it. That's why I really keep a lot to myself a lot of the time, because I've never voted. Now, good for people who do vote, but I just don't have the confidence in voting. But everyone's different, though. You know, each to their own, and that though.
Okay, I'll finish just with these. In relation to change, two things which seem to stand out.
Yeah.
To me, just going to activist. I mean, to activate means to do something.
To do something, yeah.
If you know what I mean. So, say like when I was in school, and you have to read little paragraphs out of a book, out, you know, and one of it had nigger in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I read the book, but I never used the word. I missed whatever. I can't remember the sentence was, you know, this blank, and carried on. So it says you've missed some words out. Now, in a way, I was an activist. I'd been activated. I'd been pushed. I mean, I could claim that all black people are activists in a way in their life, at some stages in their their life, because it's resisting their racism.
That's right, yeah.
Without going on about that, the other one was advertisements. So I was always being like, looked at things with a critical eye. You know, there was the Milky Bar Kid, right? And it was obvious there was no black people in advertisements. Very, 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 very few, if there was, during my.
Yeah.
During my. So I'd look at everything, you know, kids' football team. There's only black players, you know, wherever the situation was.
Image is everything.
Yeah, and now that, to me, anyway, at my age, it's a positive.
Yeah.
Positive change that's starting to black families.
Yeah.
Not just because it's a black person. We've got black families too. For the sake of a term again, interracial families, all on TV, on the advertisements, all of that. Now, there may have been many reasons why they had to do it, rather than wanting to do it.
Well, it can draw us in, can't it, more? You know, because sometimes we want to see an image of ourselves to join something. Because when we don't see it, then we don't. It's like it's not for us.
Right.
You know. Right. But Dave, though, I mean, we probably have to get you back on one time again.
So.
But I've really
enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed this conversation today. You know,
so
strong activism going way back into the day. You can tell us.
Now I can't walk around the block. You know?
Yeah, but definitely soon though we'll definitely get you back on, because you know there's probably other things we can touch on as well.
Of course.
And it's, you know, it's Black History Month. This is the final show on Discovering season 3. You know, so we're kicking it off with you.
Can I say a pleasure?
Yeah, and it's been a pleasure having you on. And like we say Black History Month. I say Original People's History Month, and I say that we don't celebrate it once a month. If you look at Discovering shows, we go all year round.
Right. Well, I always say I'll be black in November.
Yeah, black in November, and I'll see you black in November. I like that one. I love that one, Dave.
Thank you very much, James.
Well, peace anyway out, and this is James Diboe on Discovering Season 3, and we're ending out the whole season, and I'll see you again anyway, maybe Season 4. Peace out. Thanks, Dave, anyway.
Thanks, James.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Nice one.
Cheers.